Board's here, Montgomery County Tea Party. We're here with Brian Clack, and he's running for Constable Precinct 5. It's December 9th, 2019. With me is David Smith, Larry Rogers, and Bob Bagley, and soon to be Del Fessenden. So Brian, as we discussed a little bit earlier, if you want to kick it off, first of all, thank you for coming in.
Thank y'all for inviting me.
And you're welcome to take up 5 minutes for an opening, and I know we'll go in to the Q&A session.
Okay. I'm Brian Clack. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. Moved to the Magnolia area when I was 8 years old. Went to school, graduated from Tomball High School, and have a little bit of college back and forth. Worked for my family's company growing up as a sheet metal worker, and moved up to a field foreman and other jobs, and then I went on to work for a photography company after that. I was one of their lead photographers and ran their jobs for them. And when I got out of photography and decided to go back in to the family business to where I would be able to go to the police academy, I was around 30 years old. I graduated the police academy in 2006. It was a lifelong goal that I always wanted to do, is become a police officer. And once I graduated the police academy, I went to work for Magnolia Police Department. Been there ever since. And along the way, we have discussed what constables should do and what they should not do as far as other officers in the area. I suggested that I run for constable. I have ran for constable before in the past. Since I have ran, I feel that it's made a huge difference in the Precinct 5 office from me running from the outside. And since then, the person that I was running against has retired and moved on. And I feel that if I was to get into that office, I could make a huge difference.
Okay. All right, good deal. Is it pretty uncommon for someone to be a detective at 32 years old like you were?
I will tell you, when I took a test at one time, they asked me why I wanted to be a police officer. And I informed them before I became a police officer, the reason I wanted to become a police officer is to eventually become a detective. They stated that that was not feasible, that people have to work long careers before they become a detective, and that they did not feel that I was in the right mind. I was watching too much TV and stuff like that. I was with the Magnolia Police Department for less than 2 years when I was offered the detective position, and have been in that spot pretty much ever since.
Oh, okay. And you said you've had experience with burglaries, thefts, robberies, narcotics, child pornography, sexual assaults, and death investigations. So it's pretty much full gamut.
Yes, sir.
Is there really anything you hadn't done that might, fill out your resume to be a constable, or does this pretty much take you over the top?
I feel that I've been involved in just about any and every crime that there is out there. As far as civil process, which is the main duty of a constable, we do some civil process. We don't do civil standbys and serve evictions and those things, but a lot of the calls that come in for a civil is just information that you can give them. We've been able to handle some of the civil calls in the city by just information. Being the constable, I would be entitled to be in charge of more civil duties than what I am now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Larry?
How many deputies are in Precinct 5?
With the department, there is I believe 13 school deputies, and there is, they've got quite a few more now, close to 20
Including the 13? school deputies?
No, it'd be about 30.
Plus 20, okay.
When you say 13 school deputies, what does that mean?
Precinct 5 has the contract for the Magnolia ISD schools, and they have a deputy in every single school. In the high schools, they have 2 deputies.
Each high school?
Each high school.
And so
Magnolia High and Magnolia West.
so you have 13 deputies for schools, and then how many regular officers do you have?
There's approximately 20 total.
So
I'd have to
13
sit
plus
down.
7?
No, 13 plus 20.
13, okay.
Have any idea of the dollar budget?
I don't know what the budget is exactly right now.
Okay. And the area that you cover is mainly where?
Mainly the Magnolia mailing address. It's about 140 square miles. It does go up towards Montgomery, on the south side of Montgomery. But anything from 2978, the middle dotted line, all the way to the Waller County line, from the Spring Creek in Harris County up to Waller County, there by close to the Renaissance Festival. And then down 1486 up towards the bottom half of Montgomery.
Okay. Bob?
How many people is that? Approximately, how many people?
I know the sign says 140,000 area population for Magnolia, and that was done almost 6-8 years ago. And so it's doubled, or not doubled, but it's went up tremendous. And they are saying in the next 5 years, there are probably going to be about 50,000 more residents just in the Magnolia area, in between 149 and 1774, with all those new subdivisions going in.
I was listening to a previous interview, and you talked a lot about the duties of the constables, the deputies, and all, and I'm really concerned with the schools, with the deputies. One of your comments was about a lot of downtime that the standard constable deputies had when they weren't serving papers, and that you felt they could be more effective, and they could be on the road, and they could be doing other law enforcement duties. But what about the school deputies? And are they, I mean, what do they do with summer break and all of the times off? Are they not assigned to the constable?
Actually, the school deputies are paid through the school district.
Right.
So they're pretty much on a teacher salary through a teacher schedule. So they get paid 9 months of the year, just like a school teacher would.
So the rest of the time they're off?
In the summertime, they do some training and different things to keep them up to date on the laws that change every year for schools.
And who pays them to go to that training?
It would be through the contract that they have with the school.
So do they do any of their civil duties?
A deputy that works for the school does not do civil duties.
They're licensed to,
Yeah.
just like any other peace officer. When they're off, they could be making calls as well, but that was mine.
Question, David?
So, when the constables were first set up, they were reserve papers. So tell us about what your perception is of the 20, what's the load to do that, to take care of the court's needs?
On the court's needs, it depends on what is assigned to each court, what goes through that court each month. If there's 20 evictions that go through the court that month, then the constables are responsible for evicting 20 people that month. I don't know that there's a dead set number that every single month there's a certain amount. I believe that it just depends on times of the year and different things like that. I'm sure that there are different times of the year where there's more evictions because of struggles in families. There are other papers that have to be served throughout the precinct as well, but all of those are decided by a court on what papers that need to be served.
You know, we have a sheriff, and you mentioned narcotics and traffic and all this in here. Why wouldn't the sheriff take care of those responsibilities? Why do we need a constable to take care of responsibilities beyond what the sheriff's supposed to do?
The sheriff is responsible for the criminal activity that occurs in Montgomery County. As of right now, they do require deputies to make a few traffic stops each month, but they can't enforce it too much because they don't have enough manpower to answer all the calls of service that they already have. They have a pretty high call volume each day to where they're going from call to call to call. They don't have time to make traffic stops and find out if people have drugs in their vehicles and things like that. If they do make a traffic stop and they do find drugs in their vehicle, the sheriff's department will arrest them and take them to jail. My fight in the constable race was, if you have a deputy that is licensed by the state as a constable, and he goes out and serves his papers, and he's done serving papers, and he's got 7 more hours to do, he needs to do criminal work for the rest of those 7 hours, instead of just serving his papers and sitting around the office the rest of the time.
So how many of the 20 do you think are actually full-time serving papers?
I believe right now they've got 3 that are actually serving papers.
So why don't we just transfer the other, 17 to the sheriff and let him be the sole, enforcement officer? He has the structure to do that. We're just creating a duplicate structure.
I don't believe it's a duplicate structure because you're still going to need those deputies in the area for other actions that the constable's office might require. Like when Bryan College Station had their actual constable out serving papers and he was shot dead at the front door of that house, and there was nobody in the area at that time to back him up because he was the only one in that area that was serving that paper. And when you're doing an eviction, you need more than just another person standing by you. I believe that officers need more backup nowadays than they ever have. We have a target on our back 24 hours a day.
Okay. You had mentioned in the second question, please describe what you believe are the most significant issues in this race. So the department started a criminal task force designated to fighting against the narcotics in our areas and arresting those subjects with outstanding warrants. And I guess it kind of goes back to what David was just saying. The primary function is civil process. So if they're doing that, I don't know, it kind of sounds a little counter to what you were just saying, but if they're out there fighting narcotics and arresting those subjects with outstanding warrants, apparently they're not arresting, they're going after the narcotics first, rather than arresting those subjects with outstanding warrants.
They're doing both.
They're doing both?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And
why is that a bad thing?
Why is it a bad thing? No, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They weren't doing that before.
Oh, okay.
That, since I have ran and I have pushed, that is my agenda, that is what I want to happen to this department. The department has said, this guy's gonna beat us eventually, and either we start doing what he's wanting to do, or he's gonna beat us. He's gonna take us out of office. And I believe that since I have stood up against this department and shown them what needs to be done, they're starting to do it.
But since the constitutional, requirement of a constable's office is serving papers, shouldn't pretty much you stick to that? Or are you wanting to getting more into the other areas because the sheriff's department is not fulfilling their quotas? And why would they, how are y'all filling, or not y'all, but the constable's office filling quotas and the sheriff's department is not? Is there a higher bar at the sheriff's office than say the constable's office, so therefore you're able to get more applicants in that area?
I believe that what we're trying to get to is that whether they wear a sheriff's badge or they wear a constable badge, they need those, I believe they need these deputies in the area fighting drugs. Whether the sheriff has 20 more deputies in that area performing those duties, or if they have, the constables have 20 deputies. Either way, they're getting paid the exact same amount through the county. They're just being assigned a different leader to advise them what to do. As far as the narcotics, I believe that narcotics are behind a lot of the papers that constables have to push. Evictions come from people that are running on bad times. When they're running on bad times, a lot of times drugs and alcohol and narcotics, just different things, are causing them to get into the positions that they are. And if we're out there enforcing the law on narcotics, then it would cut down on some of those papers that we would have to be dealing with.
Okay, yeah, my point was basically, you got time for going?
No.
My point was, are we growing constables' offices just for the sake of growing them? Because that's what seems to be happening throughout the county, that they're going way past their constitutional authorities and responsibilities and taking on other, and that's not just Precinct 5, I mean, that's 2, that's 4, that's 3, you know, and 1.
Harris County Precinct 4 is one of the largest in the United States, or it is the largest in the United States. And they do have contracts for subdivisions and different things like that, and they are in charge of different areas throughout the Precinct 4 area, and they pretty much run it like a police department, because it's not an incorporated spot that is going to be taken care of if they don't.
Right, okay. Right.
So who is the constable now?
Chris Jones.
Chris Jones? And how many people are running in this race?
As of right now, it's myself and Chris Jones.
Okay. On our questionnaire, it says, please describe your concrete goals against which you want them to be measured in the coming term. And you said, my number one goal is to bring all departments together to work in sync. At this point, Precinct 5 does not work well with the other departments. Hasn't gotten better in the recent years. There's still a large separation. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
So, like each month, I put on a detective meeting, and we invite all the agencies around to come in and say, these are the crimes that we're having in the area, these are things that's going on that we're seeing, and we solve crimes. We'll have a Huntsville detective in a meeting with us, and they're having mini storages broken into just like we are, and they have a red Chevrolet pickup just like we do. Working together, networking, and sharing information puts people in jail in the long run. In Magnolia, it's always the same guys running around doing the same problem. They're looking for them for narcotics. We're looking for them for breaking into cars. DPS is looking for them because they're always speeding through an area. Sheriff's Department's looking for them for something totally different. And when we work together, we can pin it all together and we can stop the criminal activity that these people are doing if we work together. But in the past, it's always been a hard thing to get them to work with us.
Why do you think that is?
As long as David Hill was in office, he did not want to work with anybody else. He wanted to be in charge.
Okay, Bob?
I'm gonna go into that same question area, and your second goal was to secure the schools more. If we've got 2 full-time deputies in each high school, why do we have a drug problem in the high schools? And how many deputies then, if we have 13 total in all the schools, how many more deputies do we need to add to the schools?
I don't believe you need to add deputies to the schools. I think you need to add training, experience, and more ways to fight the narcotics in the schools. Canines can sniff out drugs all day long. If you run a dog through a school every single day, people are gonna quit bringing drugs to school. They don't wanna run dogs through schools, because then they find the drugs and then it looks bad on the school district. If you get rid of the drugs, then the school district looks good because there's no drugs. But people know that there's drugs there. But if you make arrests and kids are not in school, they don't get money for those kids, and there's a long
So
downhill spiral if you arrest somebody for drugs.
if you're in that
There.
position, how are you gonna combat that?
I'm not a politician. I'm not bought, I don't get
I
paid by them
understand.
people. I will enforce the law. If I am over the schools, I will send a dog in that school and I will get the drugs.
Okay, and if the school balks at it,
They don't
then,
have a choice. It's in Montgomery County Precinct 5 area,
Right.
and I will run a dog through the school. If we lost the contract, I would still run a dog through the school.
okay. Very good.
Awesome.
You know, our district attorney, Britt Ligon, stood up one day in Commissioner's Court and talked about exploding felony filing rate in the county. You know, up 4 years, up 50, 60%. And then, not just recently, you know, the courts ran out of money for public defenders because of all the cases that are handling now. So what's going on? Where's all this crime coming from? And, you know, if you agree that there's an increase in crime, you know, how do we combat that?
I believe narcotics and opioids and all these other things are behind a lot of the crimes. You don't have just the kid that dropped out of high school anymore that is doing drugs. You have bankers, you have lawyers, you have anybody and everybody that hurts their back at work. They get prescribed some medication, the doctor finally stops giving them the medication, and they start going to other drugs to where that soothes their pain or whatever. We have a problem with narcotics in America, period. Trump has even pushed for all of these opioid programs to fight it. I believe that we have a huge problem that starts out in doctor's offices. And that moves just normal people into offenders. I have a school teacher that I arrested that's breaking into places in the city of Magnolia. He was from the Klein School District, and he was a school teacher. Next thing you know, he's strung out on drugs, stealing lawnmowers out of Tractor Supply. It's a drug problem, more than anything.
Wow. Worse than we thought, I'm sure, huh? That's amazing that the school district, it sounds like they're, would you say, go as far to say that they're kind of covering up a problem here, not necessarily the school district, but maybe, yeah, and current law enforcement? Or does that put you too much on the spot there?
It puts me on the spot, but I believe that if I was in charge of the schools, we would be fighting the problem.
Okay. I'm on with that. Okay, Larry?
One of our general questions, please describe qualification experience. You've covered that, you're 30 years old, you were young, and you became a detective only after 2 years. But you answered also, when an officer graduates at police academy and passes state TCOLE certificate test, you're able to work for any agency in the state. I was lucky to begin at Magnolia. Being a smaller agency, you're required to perform more duties than most departments. Explain that a little bit. Because of a small agency, you have to wear more hats than you would in a larger agency.
Pretty much. If you work for the city of Magnolia, when I started, I was the only officer on when I worked. Next shift come in, you tell them what you did that night, and they would come in and do day shift. And you just switch. When you have a small agency, if we had a robbery, I was the only one there. Sure, the sheriff's department would come and back me up or something like that, but I had to do fingerprints, I had to collect any evidence that was at the scene, If there was video evidence, I would have to collect video evidence. There was not a crime scene unit that would come in. There was not a detectives that would come in immediately and start investigating the crime while the deputy was out and doing the initial report to say a robbery occurred on this day. So, starting with Magnolia, I did my own fingerprints. I followed up on a lot of the cases that I had and was able to follow through and get charges on them before it even had to go to a detective. If it was a case that could not be solved, then I would send it to a detective. Once I took over as investigations, that was one of the main reasons why they chose me, is because I followed through with my cases completely. I didn't just pass them off to somebody else. I wanted to make sure that I got the person who committed the crime in jail.
Very good. But
I'm still trying to get my head wrapped around the school thing, because when, in the budget section, you made the comment that having an officer, how would you improve the transparency and access to financial and other records for the what are the top 3 areas where the budget for this office needs to be adjusted? And you said having an officer at every school is nice, although these schools need more protection. So again, I'm gonna go back to my last question, and how many more officers is it gonna take to get more protection? I'm not talking about the drugs, you were talking about needing more funding for more officers for protection at the schools.
I'm not asking for more money.
Okay,
I'm not asking for more officers. I'm asking for training, experience, and the push to get the job done. You can't be safe if you're not making it safe. If you're paying somebody to be a
Right.
security guard and stand in front of the school, then you're gonna have a security guard to stand in front of the school.
right.
You put an officer in the school to make it safe is what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
And we need to be making it safe,
So
using that officer.
That is not what's happening there.
I do not feel that's happening.
Okay. And then another comment that you had in that same paragraph is staffing. There are employees who make more than others throughout the county for completing the same task. I thought that SO and constables were all in line now, same pay,
They were supposed to.
but they're not.
I know there was one recently that was hired that, and I say recently, it's been a while, and it was pushed that it would be an office manager position instead of a regular position, and that person was paid more than people that had 20 years experience in other departments.
But it's for a different position though.
Not really.
Okay, but the title
Every office has an office manager,
Right,
and for some reason that one was paid more than others.
okay.
let me jump real quick. So you said there was no coordination when David Hill was a constable. He liked to run everything, right? And just real quick, since we're kind of on that same subject, do you think really nothing's changed since the new constables come in? Is it pretty much the same, or is there more coordination there? Because it sounds like there's not a lot getting done, especially in the area of narcotics in schools.
If you push the schools to the side, the schools, I believe, is a political thing. I believe that the reason why things don't happen in school is because it's political.
Right.
The school does not want you to do it. You're gonna pay it, yeah, we'll put a deputy in here that'll make them feel safe.
Yeah,
We'll give you the money for that,
Yeah.
but we don't want you to do anything. And I'm not a person that sits back and says, okay, I'm just gonna sit here because you're paying me to sit here. No, I'm gonna be the person that actually fights to get something done. So, I don't remember exactly
Yeah,
what the
so
question.
has anything changed since
So-
Hill left and Constable Jones is in, or is it more of the same?
I believe Constable Jones wants a lot of what I want because it makes the department look good. I do feel that for some reason, Constable Jones has always been David Hill's golden boy. That has always been his person. At one point, he was going to step down years ago and appoint Chris Jones. And then things came up and that was postponed. And now he finally got the opportunity to do that.
Okay, since delayed by traffic, I apologize, so if this has already been asked, please stop me, okay? Of course, being constable is first and foremost a supervisory management job.
Correct.
And you mentioned that you had leadership from previous careers. Could you expand on that? Tell us what kind of leadership, what kind of management experience you have that prepares you to oversee the staff.
So when I started working, I worked for my grandfather's sheet metal company. I worked in a shop. I trained new employees to work in the shop. As I started when I was 15 years old. By the time I was 18, I was going out on jobs and working out in the field as well. I was dating a girl, and her dad owned a photography company. And he worked inside of schools taking pictures instead of me being inside of schools hanging sheet metal. And it sounded like a little bit better job. I went to work for Ron West Photography in Tomball, and before long I was out at schools running my own crew, taking pictures and going out to football fields and things like that, doing football pictures, baseball pictures and all that, and I would have photographers underneath me work for me. Moving from there, I opened my own photography company, and I did that for a while I helped pay for going to the police academy. I went back to work for my family's company, and I ran several large jobs for them where I'd have 10 to 20 employees underneath me hanging sheet metal work, and I'm running the job. Where I got good leadership was I worked side by side with each one of my employees to make sure that the job was done. I helped them out when they needed something. I was always there for them. Later on in my career with my family's company, I started doing all their estimating, and I did all of their estimating for the jobs, and I would get any future jobs that they would have. And some of those jobs would be $1 million, $1.5 million jobs, like the Berry Center off Barker Cypress there for the Cy-Fair football stadium. That was over $1 million job that I bid and we did for them. The Robert E. Lee High School in Houston and several others. Then coming to work for Magnolia, I've been their detective from day one. I've led their investigations, and officers call me 24 hours a day and ask me what they should and should not do. My phone is always available to help anybody out.
Okay, that helps me to understand a little bit. David?
Kind of back to schools, and I'll be honest, I kind of have varying opinions of this, but I'm not, I saw an article the other day in which they said roughly 75 people are killed each year in schools, in the workplace, and in social settings like the Vegas shooting where the guy gets on the roof. And so that's 75 a year, and we'll focus, like you said, on providing safety in schools. But then, we have 16,000 murders in the country a year. We have 302 murders in last year in Houston. Are we putting a right balance on this? I mean, we're talking about putting having constables in each school and all, but is the risk appropriate?
I will say, in the Magnolia area, we're probably not going to have a school shooting. Be prepared for it? Yes, we always need to be prepared for it. We never know what somebody else is going to do. Only way that you can be more prepared is to have somebody there. And when a school shooter decides to hit Magnolia ISD, when they know there's a cop standing in the front door of that school, they're not gonna hit that school. Sad to say, they're probably gonna go to a school that there's not an officer in. But I do believe that when a school shooter does attack a school, they're attacking a problem that they've had at that place. They're not attacking another school because they just want to shoot up a school. They're attacking somewhere that they've already had an issue. I believe that Texas City, or the one south here, Santa Fe, that happened last year, I believe that was a student that had a problem with other students at that school when that occurred. And they had an officer at that school. So it's more of stopping the bullying and the problems that the kids have, and
Okay. Question, how much of a problem is county hiring based on the good old boy loyalty to leadership instead of one's ability to efficiently and ethically perform their tasks and functions? You said you went before Commissioner's Court when Constable Hill retired.
yes, sir.
And although as soon as you said as soon as your presentation was complete, they voted on the resigning constable's choice without even consideration, consideration of you?
That's the way I took it, yes, sir.
Well, do you remember if that was unanimous or not, or?
I know several that I heard their voice when they said aye, but I don't know exactly how many they recorded.
Gotcha. And so what is the tie-in between Constable Jones and the old regime, David Hill? You said you called him a golden boy. Hill's, you think that he was his golden boy. Why is that? What's that tie-in there between the two of them and maybe other politicians in Magnolia like Charlie Riley and who's the former sheriff?
Tommy Gage?
Tommy Gage.
Well, I will tell you, on Tommy Gage's standpoint, I'm not speaking for him, but Tommy Gage actually worked for Precinct 5 Constables at one time, and he was part of their environmental commission. And Tommy Gage actually ran against David Hill because he did not like what was going on in that office at that time.
Really?
So I believe that was '88 when Tommy Gage ran against David Hill.
Okay, what about the other tie-ins between Constable Jones and David Hill, the old
So-
regime?
Craig Dole, Charlie Riley, David Hill, they're all a pact. If I get elected, you'll get elected. And they stick together. If I go against one of them, I'm not going to get anybody that supports them's vote. That's just guaranteed. There are a few out there that know the issues, and they will still support them because, I mean, if you're friends with the county commissioner and you've got a bad road, you got a better chance of getting your road fixed. I mean, that's just the way it works. And so they're still going to vote for somebody that they know instead of somebody they don't know, like in the last election. They might have got more accomplished, but they're still going to go with somebody that they know. And for Magnolia, going from the amount of people that it used to have to the amount of people that it has now, a lot of these people are moving from Houston to Magnolia. They don't know Charlie Riley, they don't know Craig Dole, they don't know David Hill. So I believe that good old boy system that they've had in the past, where they know everybody and you're going to vote for me no matter what because I'm the only person you know, that's kind of fading away. You've got to prove yourself, and the only way to stay in office is to continue to prove yourself.
Okay. Thanks. Larry?
One of our questions was, what is your position on taking federal money for your department? And your answer was that there's a lot of grants out there for departments to purchase items, and the county does not have a budget to purchase. So could you elaborate on that a little bit? What kind of those grants are available, and who supplies them? And how do you get them?
There's different programs that you can go through. There's like website that you can go to research grants. There are grants that are put out there to buy bulletproof vests. Every officer has to have a vest, and if it's not in we can either use it out of my budget to put a vest on every officer, or we can get this grant, they can pay for the vest, and we can use that money that is granted to our department for something else that we could actually use. There's grants for uniforms out there. I believe the Sheriff's Department several years ago switched colors of their uniforms, mainly because there was a grant for that helped purchase all the uniforms for the new deputies. It saves the county a lot of money if you go after these grants that are out there.
Is Precinct 5, have they been going after those grants?
I know they do have a few grants that they have went after. I don't know what they've actually got out of a grant, but I do know that they have looked into using, going after grants.
Okay.
Grants are all good. It's money coming in from a different source. But what about with strings attached?
I don't believe that any of the grants that we have used for the city or for the county have strings attached. And I know what you're getting at, and like you said, I'm not a politician. If there's strings attached, we're not gonna go for that grant.
Good, good. So that strings attached came about a few years ago when there was money that came in from Homeland Security, and then they were told that they were gonna have to change all of their vehicles to black and whites, and they were all gonna have to wear different uniforms and black uniforms, and everybody was gonna wear the same thing. That kind of fell through. Some of the departments did it because they were told they had to, and then there was no enforcement of it, so then they quit. So that's a big issue. But in thinking about the black and whites, you were asked before about the vehicles as far as labeling. And I got the impression that you thought that the ghost signs on the vehicles stating Constable Precinct 5 or whatever one was well within the law, the requirements that they had to be labeled for the public to see. But you like the idea because they were ghosts and they couldn't see them without really looking well, and you made more busts by using those. It's a fine line between being there for the public and for the public's safety and being there for possible entrapment.
Yes, sir. So, by law, in the occupations code, you have to have 2-inch lettering. It does not say what color, what type. It has to have 2 inches or bigger lettering. Most of the ghost cars are reflective. If at night, any light that hits it shines, and you can see it miles away. Most of the vehicles that I know of that has the ghost lettering, it's on the side. And so when you're driving down the road, you're not going to see the emblem either way when they're coming at you. They have proven that if you have the ghost lettering, you can catch more road rage incidents than having a big red fire truck sitting right in the middle. If they see the big red fire truck, they're not going to fly past it. If you have a tow car with the ghost lettering, it has been proven that they will fly right up on the officer before they even know that it's there.
Or are you talking road rage, or are you talking about speeding? There's a difference.
I would say both, but I don't even do traffic anymore, but I'm saying that it does help.
Well, things have changed a lot over the years, where the lights on top, the light bars used to be really big and you could see them from everywhere.
Right.
And now they're so small that you can barely tell if it's a ski rack or whatever, or they're on the inside of the car inside the windshield or in the back windows. So you really can't even see them. So it's another one of those fine lines.
He's obviously had a problem with that.
Right. So there's other fights that
No tickets.
There's other fights that you can fight with having the lights on the inside of the vehicle. They don't catch on stuff when you're driving through places, like especially the car wash. They don't catch on them. The lenses on them don't get tainted from the sun and weathered and things like that. They're definitely a lot brighter once they're inside the car for a while.
We got time for a couple of quick questions.
Okay, I'm trying to put a couple of things that aren't adding up for me, and I'd like you to add them up for me. You mentioned earlier that you're not asking for more money. One of your top 3 areas was, I believe, that more money needs to be allocated for training. So that you'd have to take that from somewhere else, maybe. Back to the discussion on grants now. If there's a need for more money, as in grants, if you don't need more money, you don't need grants. And if you need the grants, then that means that there's something, some piece of equipment, some function, whatever, that is not getting done because of lack of money. So would you help put that all together, and what is it in Constable 5's office that is missing, that needs more money through grants or something of that nature?
Well, it's like several years ago when they came up with the whole body camera thing. Every criminal wanted an officer to wear a body camera. They want to prove that the officer's doing something wrong at all times. It's always the officer's fault. Well, for small agencies, and you can consider Precinct 5 being a small agency because that is one budget. And there's a certain amount of officers in that one budget. Magnolia Police Department has a certain amount of officers in that one budget. And even the smaller departments like Stagecoach PD and Panorama PD and Roman Forest, those agencies don't have money to go out and purchase a $2,000 to $5,000 body camera at any point in time.
Do all of the Constable Precinct 5 have body cams already?
I'm not sure if every deputy has one, but a majority of their deputies are wearing body cameras now.
And all their vehicles have dash cams?
The ones working traffic and enforcing criminal activity, yes.
So what is it that they're lacking and needing funds for?
I'm just saying, you asked
Right.
what they would need funds for. There's always something that always gets thrown out there that you have to invest in on the next day. At one time, they didn't have bulletproof vest in budgets. That became to where you have to have that in a budget nowadays. Body cams have to be in a budget now. Anytime you hire a new officer, you're gonna have to get a new body cam, new vest, new uniform, new everything. But we don't know what 2020 is gonna require. What they're gonna say, all right, every patrol car has to have a red light on the front fender. You're gonna have to come up with that money somehow, some way, and grants and different things like that help. I believe there are still agencies in Montgomery County that don't have computers in their cars. That saves a lot of time and a lot of effort to be able to have a computer in the car. If you're able to print out a ticket out of a machine sitting right next to you, instead of writing on a piece of paper that you have to order from a different company, it saves money printing out of this $200 printer than out of a booklet that you have to purchase from another company.
And you can
But to
actually
be able-
read it.
Yes, you can actually read it. So, I have to have printers this year because we want to be able to write tickets out of the patrol car using electronic typing. So, each year there's always something else that comes up that you might need. And without asking for more money, you go for a grant.
Okay. Dave?
Last question.
Back to video. So, you know, we didn't have video for a while, and we had a president who basically abused police constantly. We end up with all these videos, but, you know, these videos are like a subscription service. You know, every month, you know, that camera has, you buy a subscription and it's a fee, $200 a month. So it's thousands of dollars to record all this video. in everybody's budget now. You know, do you really think that we're driving, I mean, I understand protection of the police officer, but it had to add tens of thousands of dollars a month to everybody's budget to pay for the storage.
The storage
And
is,
all these videos.
yes,
No one
that's-
probably uses 99% of them.
right. The storage is the big holdup. And just like the computer programming that stores our report writing systems and stuff like that, a lot of the small local departments have to pay for their own report writing system because the one that the county chose was too expensive for us to be able to afford. Whereas if we were all on the same system, we could work more efficient. But they don't know how to bill small departments because they don't know how much of their server it's going to take to build it. How much are we going to fill up with their server when we start writing reports? Same with the video. We're only required to keep certain videos for certain times. Like a normal traffic stop is like 90 days. If there's a major incident, we keep them for a lot longer than that. But the more officers you have, the more video you have, the more storage we're going to have each year.
You know, you mentioned something about capability because of the small officers. Don't we need to get back to what we talked about earlier? We have a constitutional requirement that we have constables serve papers, and now they're getting into, you know, everything else, right? And that's what the sheriff's job is. So if these, you know, the majority of these officers just transferred to the sheriff, then they have the infrastructure, right? They have the software systems and all to already in place. You don't have to duplicate them. We just add capacity. We just add a number of users. It seems like we have a lot of redundancy in terms of infrastructure to support a constable that's way beyond constitutional requirements.
Well, as far as the constable's office and the sheriff's department, they all run off the same system because it's a county system. The small agencies, Roman Forest and Stagecoach and Magnolia and different small agencies, we're on a different report writing system. We still do our arrest records through their system, and we still put some information in their system, but our normal day-to-day reports we do through our own. How would you feel if your house was just broken into and the guy across the street is serving papers and he is saying, well, sorry, I'm a constable, I can't help you out because I'm serving papers and that's all I'm required to do. They're a peace officer in the state of Texas. If that peace officer is serving a paper at this house and he hears there's a burglary across the street, he should get to that burglary. That's the way I feel. If a sheriff's officer comes up later and does the report and the investigation and all that, I'm fine with that. But if you have a deputy in that area, they need to report to the priority call and be able to help that person no matter what their original job requirement is. We're there for public safety more than anything.
One little quick question on what I asked before. The cog in the wheel right now as far as cooperation between all the agencies. Obviously it was there with Hill. Is it still there with Jones? Give me a percent.
See, I've worked with Jones a lot more than Hill. Hill was Hill. And I will say that one of the biggest things that I had to do after the first election was forgive and forget. And the stuff that he did to me through that election and tried to destroy my family and my life and everything else, the best thing that I had to do was forgive. Once I did that, I felt 100% better in my own self. Although, knowing Jones through the years, I've always had a good, working, friendly relationship with Chris Jones. So if I need something, I can call Chris and we can probably get something worked out. Being that I'm running against him right now, maybe not till after March on whoever wins or loses, but I believe Chris will help out if I ask him at this point in time.
Okay. Good deal, thanks for that. You're welcome to close out up to 5 minutes if you like, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Another tough questioning. I don't have the answer for everything, and a lot of the stuff are open-ended questions that can be discussed for many hours. I feel that at this point in time, I'm in the hands of my Lord Jesus Christ, and if He wants me to be the Precinct 5 Constable, I believe He's leading me in that direction, and He's going to make it happen. If I am to be at Magnolia Police Department for now on, I'm completely satisfied with that. I love my job, I love where I work, I love everything that I do about my job. I just want to do what's best for my community, and if I'm capable and able to do something better for my community, vote for Clack.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.